this section, we're going to invite our keynote speaker, Steve Hoffman. Steve, you there?
I am here. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you, Steve. Steve is also the CEO and founder of Founderspace, also the co-organizer for tonight's event. And Steve Hoffman is one of the Founderspace is one of the world's leading incubator and accelerators. Steve is also an angel investor, serial entrepreneur, and also author of several award-winning books like Make Elephant Fly, Surviving the Startup, The 5 Forces That Change Everything, and also another new book is coming, right, Steve? What's the name of the new book?
Well, The 5 Forces is the new book.
Oh, 5 Forces is a new book. It's wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so the speech Steve is going to give to us is the 10 Commandments of Venture Capital. Steve, so let's welcome Steve Hoffman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will start now. Just so you know, my background, I have done 3 venture-funded startups in Silicon Valley. I've been in the trenches. I've been an serial entrepreneur. I know what you're going through right now. And I actually perfected my raising of venture capital through some simple rules. And these are guidelines that you can follow and will actually accelerate your pace of raising. Now, rule number 1 is investors want elephants. This seems logical, but being an investor myself, I get pitched all the time by startups whose ideas are just too small. So you have to remember, if you're going for venture capital, especially here in Silicon Valley, you can't be conservative. You have to think big. Now, the reason is you can go up to a venture capitalist and you can tell that venture capitalist that your company will give a 10x return. But if your company's too small, the venture capitalist doesn't care, even if you guarantee it. So let's say your company is worth $1 million today, and you say, I can exit in a year for 10 million. Well, to you, that may seem like a lot of money. But to most of the major VC funds in Silicon Valley, it's a rounding error. If you have a 500 million or billion-dollar fund, you can't afford to do these tiny investments. They're not going to pay off. It does not fit their model. So make sure if you're going to go down the path, and it starts with angel investors, most of the smart angels I know will invest on the same criteria as the larger venture firms, because they know that if they put money into your startup, but you are not going to grow rapidly enough or big enough in the amount of time you have, which is limited by the life of the fund, then they're never going to get an exit because none of the major investors will follow. And let's face it, the companies that get sizable exits are always the ones who are growing exponentially fast. So remember to shoot for elephants and not mice when you're going out there. Number 2, when you go into pitch venture capitalists, whatever you're doing today matters. You have to show them where you are today, but you are always selling the future. You cannot just focus on the data you have now, because investors aren't investing in your company today. What they're doing is looking for what you will become and how you'll get there. So you need to paint that roadmap for them. So instead of spending too much time just on your current technology and your current application or whatever you're developing, where it is right now, you need to allocate a certain amount of time for where you will be in 1 year, then 2 years, all the way 5 or 10 years out, so that the investor can see your vision. Look at the companies today and where they're at. Like when Elon Musk started SpaceX, he didn't say, I'm just gonna do satellites, right? He had a huge vision and he is marching towards that vision. Same with Tesla, same with all these companies. So make sure your vision matches the size that you want to convey to the investor. Number 3, your valuation. I get asked this question almost every time I meet with a startup. What am I worth? If they're an early stage startup and they haven't raised money yet, figuring out your valuation is extremely difficult. Even if you've raised money, it's a guessing game. The fact is, nobody knows your true valuation. Your valuation ultimately is what you can get people to pay for your company. And that is determined by the state of the market. Right now, we are in a seller's market, which is great for entrepreneurs. Like, investors are bidding up startups, especially technology startups. So you're in a good position to set your valuation, but you need to do it within parameters. So the most important thing is look at the market. That means look at what other similar startups are raising at today. And you can find this information out by going on AngelList as an investor, or if you have a friend who's an investor and actually see the valuations of all the companies. You can find this out by talking to professionals like myself or those on the panel. We see a lot of startups. We have a very good idea. Or just talking to other startup founders and reading online. But you have to know the parameters. If you're way above where the market is, it's going to retard your investment. It's going to slow you down, and you do not want to slow down. And if you're too low, you're leaving money on the table. That's the key. Number 4, know your competition. One of the first questions I ask entrepreneurs when I meet with them is, who is your competition? And I often get the very discouraging answer, I don't know my competition, or I have no competition. Both of those are the wrong answer. You need to, first of all, if you're going to start a business, before you do anything, before you write your business plan, before you type a line of code, you should be spending an enormous amount of time studying who's out there in your space. And I guarantee there are people in your space. Anything that you're doing is being done, although maybe a different way. Even if it's a new type of application, people are already consuming something else for their entertainment or their time, and you need to pull them away from that and focus them on you. So you need to compare what you have with what's out there, and you should know those products as well as you know your own product. And if you don't, it's a huge red flag to investors. Number 5, investors need data. It's great to talk about your vision. It's great to hype it up. That's your job. But at the end of the day, investors like me, we want to see something to back up your words. We want to have some proof that what you're saying has validity in the real world. We can all dream, but your job as an entrepreneur is to get this data. Now, if you're early, you haven't launched your product yet, you might not have a lot of data, but that doesn't mean you can't get it. So I'll give you a few examples. If you're a B2B company and you have customers out there, you can go talk to them. And not only can you talk to them, but you can get data from them. One very simple thing to do that I don't see many entrepreneurs doing is you could actually go out there and videotape your customers' reactions to your product pitch. So even if you haven't built it yet, if you have a PowerPoint or a video and you present it to potential customers, you could capture them on video, string those videos together, and actually come up with something that you can show investors in a couple minutes, the customer reactions, and then they can gauge for themselves. You would be surprised on the impact. You can also put out web pages that have your product and drive traffic through them, through Facebook or Google, and get reactions even before it's built, get signups. There's Kickstarter, there's Indiegogo. There are so many different ways to gather data early, and you need to compile this in a very clear way and present it to investors. Number 6, when you talk to investors, like myself or any venture capitalist, don't go out there focused on money, money, money. Your job, you're not a used car salesman. You're not out there to just get the sale. Remember, most investors don't don't want to be pressured. It's like when you go in to buy something in a store and somebody pressures you to buy it. You don't like that. That turns you off. Instead, a better way to approach investors is how you want to be approached, by a salesperson. You want them to find out what you want, what you're looking at, what your reaction is to the products you're being shown, so that they can guide you to the right thing. As an entrepreneur, you want to not pitch at an investor. You want to start a dialogue with the investor. You want to engage the investor in a conversation where they get to learn about your business, you get to learn about them. And remember, if the investor is asking a lot of hard questions, that's a good sign. That means they're actually interested in possibly investing. If they aren't asking hard questions, if they're just nodding their head, you're probably not going to close a deal. So remember that. Get the investor talking. Find out what the investor wants. And the most important thing is that the investor will tell you things that you might not know. They have a perspective on the market, on the competition, on the world that you don't have. They have a lot of information. Many of them are very experienced entrepreneurs themselves. Their feedback can be invaluable. And if you were to pay them, it would cost you hundreds or thousands of dollars in consulting time. But they are giving you this for free. So take advantage of it. That way, even if they don't invest, you actually can walk away from that pitch with something valuable. Number 7, make your pitch memorable. Too many people do the same pitch in the same way every time, and it's just like every other pitch. I will tell you, I attend these pitch events all over the world, all the time. We have our incubators in China and everywhere, and I hear the pitches that sound almost identical. So do something different. Spice it up. If you have a product, bring it out to show. If it's a robot, actually let it walk around on stage if you're on a stage. If it's food, if you're like a food tech startup and you're actually making a new food, let the judges taste it. Of course, you can't do that on Zoom right now with COVID-19, but I've been to many pitches where food startups didn't even bring samples of their food. How can we know if it's really as great as they say? Why didn't they bring a sample? Very simple things like that go a long way. Number 8, create competition. Now, this is probably the most important piece of advice I'll give you. Investors don't close deals just because you pitch them. They close deals, like most people, because they're under some pressure to make a decision. Otherwise, they're going to sit on the fence. That's what investors do best. The investors mull over things and only make an investment when they're actually really drawn into it. I will tell you, we see so many pitches every year, especially if we're a better known investor. We see hundreds of pitches a year. We can't invest in all those companies. So most of the companies, we're just going to look at, nod our heads, and go on to the next one. We're only going to invest if we feel like this is urgent. So you need to create a sense of urgency. And one way I've done this in my pitches, and I've seen other entrepreneurs do it, is they actually get investors to come up to them, and when they are pitching, they let that investor know that there are other investors interested in the deal. Now, honestly, if you have a decent company and you're out there pitching, there are always other investors interested. And you, most important of all, need to make a deadline. A deadline is critical because people don't act. If you give investors as much time as they want to make a decision, they'll just wait, because if they don't think the deal's going to get taken away from them, it's to their advantage to see what happens next. By waiting, they gain more information. They get a better idea of where your company is going and whether you'll be a success or a failure. They're only going to invest right now if they feel like they won't have a second chance. So you need to create competition and tell investors, look, I'm giving you 2 weeks to make a decision. And if you can't come back to me with a decision in 2 weeks, we're moving on. to other investors, period. That's it. We're not hanging out. Then the investor knows that within those 2 weeks, they have to say yes or no. And if they say nothing at all, it's an automatic no. Number 9, use fear and greed. So my magic rule when pitching investors is you need to make investors more afraid of losing the deal than they are afraid of losing their money. It's like a scale. If the deal fear is bigger than the fear of losing their money, they will invest. If their fear of losing their money is greater, they will walk away. This is absolutely critical. So investors are motivated by fear, and their fear isn't just of losing their money. They're also afraid of losing their reputation. You know, especially in VC firms, which I've been inside, top VC firms on Sand Hill Road, and saw from the inside how they operated. I will tell you, most of those investors are more worried what their partners in the firm think than their own decision on whether they're right or wrong. They do not want to have brought a deal into the firm that tanks, because that will reflect badly on them. And people are social animals. So it's absolutely critical that you address these fears. This is why when you're pitching in a big firm on Silicon Valley, most of them operate by consensus. And that is because they don't want any one person saying, you pushed through this deal, you lost us all this money. They want to be able to say, everybody said yes. So you have to work across a firm. I could go into more detail with this, but really, if you want to understand the dynamics of a venture firm, go read my books. It goes into excessive detail on the psychology of investors and how they actually come to the decisions they make. Now, number 10 is a little metaphor I want to give you, and that is raising capital is like kissing frogs. All of us dream of Prince Charming. We dream that somebody will come to our company, we will kiss them, they'll turn into Prince Charming, and then they will carry us away, and we will live happily ever after. But in the real world, when you go up to a frog and kiss it, it usually does not turn into Prince Charming. So I have a rule with investors. Each investor is like a frog, and you can kiss each investor up to 3 times. And if that investor, after your 3rd kiss, has not invested money in you, they're just a frog. They will never be your Prince Charming. This rule of thumb is really important. By 3 kisses, I mean you pitch that same investor 3 times. If you've gone to that investor and pitched them, first maybe over coffee, next maybe at the VC firm, then hopefully with other partners, and they haven't bitten, they haven't said yes, they haven't become your Prince Charming, cut it off. Move on. This is what you have to do as an entrepreneur. And it's honestly the way you have to think. Do not get attached. I've seen entrepreneurs keep hoping, beyond hope, that an investor will invest, and they just waste their time. Both mental energy and physical time, everything gets wasted. Now, I model your chances of pitching. It's like a curve going up. On your first pitch, it's very low. On your second pitch, it's somewhere in the middle. On your 3rd and 4th pitch, it usually peaks. That's the time when you have the maximum chance of closing a deal. And after that, it exponentially declines. So by the time you've met with that investor 5 times and they still haven't bitten, it's just going down and down and down. Don't waste another meeting with them. Move on. Use that time to find other investors. So that's my talk. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope to meet you sometime in the future. And if you want to reach out to me or watch some of my videos or anything like that, or sign up for our incubator, just go to founderspace.com. That's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's always so inspiring each time I listen to your speech. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. And also, I hope that someday we can invite you to Taiwan.
Oh, I would love, I've been there many times. I've
Okay,
met your
great.
prime minister in Taiwan.
Oh,
I have worked with incubators there and eTree. So I'm very familiar with Taiwan and I love it.
great, great.
Love to come back.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much.